We're going to talk about some good stuff today. So I'll let Drew take it away because he's got some good stories. We're going to talk about inner healing, inner heart healing.
Inner heart healing.
Inner heart healing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I've discovered in this walk with God, this journey that started in 1989 for me, is the universe and our place in it with the Lord is massive, expansive, right? Beyond anything you could wrap your little mind around or my little mind around, right? It's like so much more, right? And I've had some amazing encounters with the Lord. I've been taken up to heaven. I've worshiped in heaven, which was amazing. But I think for me, it all started, and this had to be 15 years ago. I was home with the kids, raising kids, and every day I would put them in. For me, mentally, it was a timeout.
Quiet time. Remember, you had a song. What was the song you used to sing? You got to do it. So funny.
So I would sing. I would just start singing this song. And,
it's quiet time.
Yep. Yeah. It's yours, not mine. Right?
Yep.
So I would sing this goofy little song to the kids. I would just walk into the room. They may have been watching TV, playing Legos, doing whatever, playing in the backyard. And I just announce, it's quiet time. And so every day from noon to 2, the deal was, you don't have to take a nap, but you can.
Yeah.
You don't have to do your workbook, because I always gave the kids workbooks for their next year in school.
Yes.
So like if Ari's in 2nd grade, I bought him 3rd grade workbooks. Yes. English, math, geography, whatever.
Something, yeah.
And, I'd do the same for Ella and for Hope.
Yeah.
And for Hope, a lot of times it was coloring books because she was too little.
Yeah.
She was 2, 3 years old, So, but they had to go to their rooms.
Yep.
And they had to be quiet. Now, it was a little harder for the girls because they're together, so they would play sometimes and make noise, and I was fine with that, but I needed a break.
Yep.
I needed an emotional break for 2 hours from the kids, And so a lot of that, during that time, I would clean up, or I would, wash all the dishes from breakfast and lunch. But I remember this time, I was turned on to Anna Mendez Farrell, hearing her testimony, how she came out of Satanism down in Mexico to being spirit-filled, doing deliverance. I mean, really just hearing from the Lord, very prophetic. And we've gotten to know her husband, Emerson Farrell. He was here this year to our church.
For a ladies' retreat.
Yeah, he did the ladies' retreat. And they're just an amazing couple who really walk closely with God and hear from God. So I'm reading a book she wrote called Regions of Captivity. And I don't remember the whole book because it's been so long, but I was reading that book, and I'm sitting in the chair in our living room. We have a big double-sized chair, and we sit in it together a lot of times when we counsel people to this day. And I'm sitting in the chair, and I was reading the book, and all of a sudden, I was transported. Like, with my eyes open, I wasn't closed looking at Spirit TV, right? My eyes are open, and all of a sudden, shoot! I am no longer in our living room in Yuba City. I am standing in what felt like a medieval dungeon. Not a dungeon, but a corridor.
Yep.
And I can smell the smells, and I can tap into it even right now just talking to you about it. It smelled musty.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was damp. It was dreary. The walls were these giant stones, and it was a very ancient structure. And I'm standing there, and it's all of a sudden I felt it was either the Lord or a giant angel behind me, and I felt this presence of love and power, like incredible power behind me. And I tried to turn around and look at it, but I couldn't.
Right.
Like I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
So I just knew in my knower, start walking. So I'm walking down this corridor, and it looked like it was about, I measure everything in yards, right? Because as a kid, I played a lot of football. So I'm walking down this corridor, and it looks like it's about 60 yards long. and I can't see past that. It's just dark. And so I'm walking, and it's really high ceilings, but it's all stone. And I look to my left, and I see this giant old wood beam door with a big handle in the middle. It's wrought iron, dark,
right,
big handle. And I know to go through the door, but I don't have to open the door. Mm-hmm. It was wild. I just walked through the door. And as I walked through the door with this angel or the Lord behind me, I knew I was okay.
Yeah.
But I walked through the door, and what I saw were these, it was a littler dungeon room, probably a 10 by 10, 12 by 12 room. And I saw these big, what looked like silverback gorillas, massive, hideous creatures. And then I noticed their arms. Their arms were so long that their elbows were on the ground, and then they had an extended forearm and hands, paws, like with these giant, Edward Scissorhand razors on them. And I walk in, and I'm kind of taken back by the scene, and these things are just heaving, and it just felt dirty and evil. And so I had a little trepidation, right? I'm like, whoa, what is going on in here? And then I saw through them. It's almost like they disappeared, but I could see in the corner, and it was me. And it was like an 8 to 9 year old, maybe 10-year-old me in that corner, just ripped to shreds. And I'm in that corner, and I'm bleeding, and I'm suffering. And then me in that corner gets pissed off at some point, just goes like, and comes at these things. And then these things just laughingly just start hammering, slashing, and shoving me back in the corner. And then I'm like, what is going on?
Right.
And whoever was behind me said, go get yourself. Go rescue yourself. And as I started to approach, I'm thinking, how am I going to deal with these giant gorilla things? They seem to be about 8 feet tall with these massive razor claws. The minute I started to walk towards me with the intention of going to get myself, these things fled. One went through this wall, one went through that wall, and I'm looking at myself on the ground, and I knew, pick me up. So I picked myself up, put myself over my shoulder, and I walk out. Now, meanwhile, everywhere I turn, this angel was behind me, and I couldn't turn to see it. But I knew what to do. And so I walked out the door. I walked down that hallway, and there was like a PG&E ladder down into the sewers, right? It was this wrought iron ladder, narrow ladder going straight up. And I knew, go up. So I have myself on the shoulder, and I start climbing this ladder. Boom, I'm back in my chair in Yuba City. And I was like, God, what was that? Like, what was that? And then as I read that book about regions of captivity, and this is going to blow people's mind, but that's fine. Like David Hogan says, I'm not out of my mind, I'm just out of yours. Right.
Love that quote.
I do too. That just paints the picture, right?
Right.
Like this experience happened.
Right.
And I know it happened because I was there.
Right.
And I come back to Yuba City right now, and I'm like, whoa. I'm breathing heavy. My adrenaline is skyrocketing. Like I just had 2 5-hour energies and 3 cappuccinos, right? I'm just this ball of, what the heck was that, right? And I think I even called you on the phone or something and was like, oh my God, I just had this amazing experience. And but what I've came to realize, and God revealed it to me slowly over time, is when we experience trauma, and I had a pretty traumatic childhood, being raised by a single mom who had an anger issue and, whatever else was going on, trying to raise 5 kids by herself, all the pressure of that, and then me being a handful as a little dude. And then,
I can't imagine that, you being a handful.
I've really mellowed out. I have really mellowed out, right?
Yeah, you have.
I'm mellowed out. True. I used to be a trumpet. Now I'm a violin.
Yes. Something like that.
Something like that.
Maybe a kazoo.
A kazoo. That annoying little. Yeah. Anyway.
That's that annoying spirit. that you get on you sometimes.
Okay.
Like the anointing.
But different. The annoying spirit. Okay.
Anyway, sorry, go back.
I'm just trying to help you become more loving and compassionate and Lord patient. Jesus. Sometimes the Lord will use me in that capacity.
I think he is teaching me unconditional love and patience.
So that was a wild experience. And
yeah, that's wild.
I in our natural minds, we can't conceive that. Like, what was that? Where was I?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so what I don't even know where to take this conversation because it can go so many directions. But what I've come to realize as the Lord's revealed different things over the years, like I said, that was 15 years ago, is that when we face trauma, we have a split in our soul.
Yep.
And that split can happen, and usually this trauma, I believe, happens, it can happen at any time in your life.
Right.
But what happens is you have a split. It's like looking in a mirror. Have you ever looked in a cracked mirror?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You see your face,
right,
but your eye's a little off,
right,
your jawline's over here, your mouth's kind of cockeyed, but there's a split.
Right.
It's still you, but it's a distorted version of you.
Yes, right.
And so I think what happens to us when we face trauma is something splits in the moment of that intense fear or anger or whatever that's traumatizing.
Right.
And trauma is very different for all people, right? When you're a little person, a little child, a baby, and your parent raises their voice.
Right. Right.
Right? That's traumatic.
Yeah.
And you can have a little split right there. And what I've come to realize doing a lot of deliverance and a lot of inner healing stuff is that that split is still you,
right,
but it's you in that stunted moment.
Right.
And what happens is when you face strong emotions, that little part of you hijacks the car.
Right.
Like, this is me, Drew, sitting here at 58, but if I still had trauma in my life, something could happen to me driving home today. Somebody pisses me off, and guess what? That little personality of me,
right, that 8-year-old is responding. Right?
That 8-year-old starts to respond,
right,
and that 8-year-old's pissed off, wants to fight, and doesn't know how to cope. Right? Only thing it knows is rage and anger, and you're not going to intimidate me. I'm going to fight you. And that part takes over. And we hear about it all the time, right? People will say things like, what got into you? Or we'll say of ourselves, I don't know what got into me.
Right.
Right? Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting that we use that term.
We do. And we don't realize there's so much truth behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something did get into you at that time. And I also believe this, when you have that split in your personality, in your character, in your heart,
yeah,
demons come to inhabit that place.
Right. Yeah.
And they come to torment you in that place. And that's why I don't know how old I was, 10-year-old me was stuck in that corner.
Right.
Being brutalized, being victimized, being tormented and tortured. And until I saved that part of me,
right,
that's where I would go. And you've seen it in my character over the years.
Oh, yeah. Total change.
Yeah.
Total change.
To where if something pissed me off or I felt that there was danger or intimidation, right, my natural response would be anger, violence, protect what's mine. Right. Now, not so much.
Now you're, pretty chill.
Yeah, it's really chilled out. Well, because I've been healed from that trauma.
Right. And, I think with that, it's not just time going by. We say time heals all wounds. I don't think so. I think it's Jesus heals all wounds. The Lord heals all wounds.
Yes.
And it's, going back into that place, not reliving the trauma, but integrating back that part.
Right. That part of you that at that age split off. And it's funny because we've seen it with people, and you can see it in people all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We'll say things like, they got triggered.
Right.
Well, really what happens is you get carjacked.
Right. That other part.
Right. Throws you in the passenger seat and takes over.
Takes over.
And it's like, I'm driving now.
Right.
Right. For some people, they can't handle alcohol because when they get on alcohol, which we call spirits, right? They get inebriated, and all of a sudden a different personality takes over. And they're a different person. Like I've seen some of the most chill guys become some of the most violent people.
Right.
I've seen some very, sweet women become super sarcastic and gossipy.
Well, the Bible says wine is a mocker and beer a brawler.
Right.
There you go.
Which reminds me, when I was a young man, I couldn't drink. For some reason, every time I drank Mickey's Big Mouth, it was a type of malt liquor.
Yeah.
I was going to fight.
Yeah.
And
beer's a brawler.
I wasn't that aggressive guy looking to fight all the time. I had friends like that, but I wasn't that guy necessarily. I was out to have a good time, party, meet people, whatever. Find girls. That was my thing. But yeah, if I drank Mickey's Big Mouth, and it's funny because it had a hornet on the top of the cap with its stinger out, and it looked very aggressive. And I just knew if we're drinking Mickey's tonight, I'm going to be in a fight. I was going to start a fight. There was going to be a fight.
That makes me think, I wonder what intention is put in that. We call it spirits.
Right.
Right. What intention was put in that alcohol? I mean, because you think about, and maybe this is a little off, but in Proverbs where, it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. But that verse before it is about the stingy man, right? It says, the stingy man, and he makes food for you. And he says, with his mouth, eat and drink. It says, but his heart is not with you. And then the result is you're going to vomit up what he made. The intention that he placed in that, what he made for you, is going to cause you to have a reaction.
Right.
How much intention is placed in the food we're eating? Well, I mean, even when you go to a restaurant, it's anytime you eat, we should always pray over our food and over what we're drinking, because you don't know what intention has gone into what's been prepared for you, which is, we have a food business and a barbecue business, and we make all ours with, when they say it's made with love, we actually make our food with love. We prepare it with love.
We pray over
love.
it.
We want people to feel when they're eating, to feel love.
Right.
To taste the love. And that's not just a saying, like that's real deal.
Yeah, it's true. And I think too, my agreement, right?
Right.
First time I drank it, got into a big fight on Clayton Road, which was our cruising area, and then it put a thought in my mind that when I drink this particular beer, it's going to cause problems, and I'm going to get very aggressive and violent.
Right. So now you're in agreement with
exactly right. And as a man thinks in his heart, right? So our words have power. We have the power of life and death in the tongue. So if I'm speaking, this is going to be an interesting night, and we're going to be fighting, right? So, which I hated fighting because I hated fighting, but I hated to get my clothes dirty or ruined or ripped, which always happens when you're in a fight.
Right.
Right. It's better you just zip up your Letterman jacket and go for it.
I'm going to share about when you were a little kid and how you would make your mom come pick you up from school. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, I didn't like getting dirty, man. I didn't like getting dirty.
Nope.
And if we were playing and I got dirty, I would get in a fight because I knew they'd suspend me, and then I'd go home.
And then you go home.
If I had a stain on my shirt, or if someone bumped me and I'm drinking my chocolate milk, and one of my friends comes up, hey, and now I got to fight, so I can get sent to the principal's office and sent home.
That's so funny.
So stupid.
I don't know why, that's just funny to me.
Yeah.
I can just see you, little Andy.
Yo, well, because you're the girl who fell out of the car her first day of high school, skinned your knee.
I did.
Had blood all over you.
Day. It was so humiliating.
Yep. You didn't go home.
I didn't go home. I stayed. I was like,
you stayed with a bloody knee.
I gotta be here. Yep.
Blood running down your. What were you wearing?
I think I was wearing white pants.
Oh.
This was what, late 80s.
The white pants. White dittos?
White pants.
Were they dittos?
I don't think they were dittos, no.
Okay, that was my generation. So much older than you.
So much older. Significantly older.
6 years. That's not a big gap. It's not a big gap unless we're thinking my senior ball and you're in the 6th grade and I took you.
You took me to the prom. I'm a 6th grader.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
That'd be weird.
That's a little weird. All right. But back to trauma.
Yes.
So I remember last year, a friend of ours went to Susan Wright weekend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Inner heart healing. Ooh.
Yeah. Susan Wright's amazing.
Inner heart healing. She's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. if you're watching and you need some inner heart healing, which everybody does. You may not think you do. We're going to talk about that.
Let me share about that. Let me talk about that. So Drew mentions to me, we were hanging out with some friends who had done this weekend getaway with Susan Wright doing this.
I think she had done it.
Oh, she had done it. Yeah. And she was telling us, oh, you guys should do it. And I'm thinking that would be great for Drew. He could really had a pretty rough, traumatic childhood. And, you should go and get some good inner healing. Right. And then
I remember you were so like,
I was like,
hey, look it up online and find the weekends where she's nearby.
Yeah.
She does it up. She was in Oregon.
In Oregon.
And,
not too far from us.
No, we thought we'd drive up there and spend a weekend. And you're like, oh, that'd be great. You should go do it with Dave.
Yeah, you should go. Yeah.
You should take your friend. I'm like, this is a chance for us to get away. Why would I go with Dave? Like I see Dave. No, you should go.
So I thought, wow.
These are our really good friends, Dave and Rachel Gill.
Yes, they're awesome.
They're amazing. Live around the corner from us.
Yes,
so
they're wonderful friends.
We spend time all the time.
Anyway, so I was like, you should just go with Dave. And then, as time went on, I was like, okay, I'll go, but I'll just go to support you.
Right.
I'll go to support you. That was my mentality going into this, inner heart healing. Because I thought, I didn't have a traumatic, I had a good upbringing, good childhood.
Yeah. You have amazing parents, by
amazing parents, amazing family.
I love your parents.
And so, so that was kind of my mentality going in. Like, I'll go with you, but to support you.
Little did
I know, the very first
Jehovah Sneaky.
Yeah,
set you up.
Jehovah Sneaky. Susan starts by talking about how trauma is really any wrong belief system. What are the wrong belief systems that you have? And I thought, oh, I definitely have wrong belief systems for sure. I mean, I think we all have wrong belief systems, any lie that we believe, and so that opened up for me. I started writing down, the different belief systems I had and I think the biggest one that came up right off the bat was just this need to be perfect, this need to be perfect. And I was never told that. I didn't grow up being told you have to be perfect, but there was something in me that knew like I needed to be perfect.
Right.
And I would really beat myself up if I
made you a good student, diligent.
Yeah, a good student. But, if I make a mistake, I beat myself up. I think, why did I do that? And so all of that, I think that need to be perfect mindset was a big area for me that I needed to work through.
Right.
In the process. And the thing that she does is she takes you into an encounter with the Lord, and an encounter first before the Lord enters in. You see how old were you when that belief system entered in. And for me, when I closed my eyes and just asked the Holy Spirit, when did this come in? I was taken back to being in ballet class at a very young age. I was probably like 5, maybe 6, and feeling like stand up straight, point your toes,
right?
Stand, have good posture, like, and that's how ballet is. It's very strict. And
you were taught ballet
by my grandmother, who's amazing. She would dance with the Russian ballet in Shanghai. And so during the war, and so, she was an amazing ballet teacher, but this need to be perfect.
Right.
And I think along with that, the other wrong belief system that I had was to minimize my feelings. So one of the things, my grandparents had fled, my grandma Germany and my grandfather Austria during World War II,
right?
Because they were Jewish, and they met and married in Shanghai. It's an amazing story. But I always kind of had there in the back of my mind, well, you haven't been through the Holocaust, so you really have nothing to complain about.
Right.
No one ever said that to me. That was never said to me, ever. But just I knew in the back of my mind they had been through serious hardship. I had no right to complain about anything because I had never been through that kind of hardship. And yet that was a wrong belief system, because what it did is it invalidated any feelings that I had, and I would stuff down any feelings that I had.
Well, you also had another, if I can remind you, because I was there that weekend.
You were there.
Right there in the room. Something happened to you in school where you felt like tearing up and you shut that down.
It was like first or second grade maybe. And I just remember, and I'm not sure, I don't remember what exactly happened, but I remember thinking, don't cry, don't cry. And I remember willing myself not to cry.
Yeah.
Shut it down. I think I, didn't want to be embarrassed in front of the class.
Right.
And so I just remember hardening myself and going, don't cry. But what that caused was a real shutdown of any feelings or emotions. So that coupled with this mindset of you have nothing to cry about, even though, again, that was not ever told to me, it was a belief system that I had just from an awareness of knowing what my family had been through.
Right.
And so those things are trauma in, a kid's heart and soul.
Yeah.
Right. And I was stuck at that place in life until the Lord came in and really just brought healing. She takes, into an encounter. Jesus comes in and enters the situation and really just brings healing to that situation. So here I was thinking Drew's going to get all this. It's going to be so good for Drew. And I was the one.
I think I saw you cry more.
Healing.
so up to that point, we'd been married 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're on 31 now.
Yeah, this is last year.
Yeah, and I saw you cry more in that weekend, I think, than in the previous 30 years of our lives together.
Yeah, probably.
Because you
so cleansing.
You were not emotionally
right
available, invested. I mean, yeah. So that was good. What are you digging for?
I'm living for tissue. Now you're going to make me cry again.
I'm not making you do anything.
It's windy. It's been windy out here. So.
All right, cut away. Let's look at me because she's
don't look at me blowing my nose.
Blowing her nose and doing stuff.
Okay.
All right,
so
you're back.
You share about that weekend and what?
Well, you didn't go into much detail.
Well,
you kind of see here you are trying not to be emotionally available to our audience. You're gonna be emotionally available.
I got to think about what because there were several encounters. And
right. Well, share one that stands out because it was a whole weekend and we each had 2 or 3, 4 sessions in the chair.
Yeah.
With Susan.
The breakthrough chair.
Yeah. Which was awesome because she had intercessors on her team praying for us. And in fact, before we ever showed up, they were praying and asking the Lord for words about our lives and prophetic, It was
very powerful.
It was so powerful.
I would definitely recommend it to anybody.
Look up Susan Wright, Inner Healing,
and I think it's called Emmaus Road. I think that's what her ministry is called, Emmaus Road. But she's amazing.
I thought it was Healing the Heart, or maybe.
I think that may be the tagline, but I think it's Emmaus Road, Heart Healing or something like that.
Just look up Susan Wright.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a W.
With a W. She's amazing. And it was incredible. But she brings, Jesus into the situation. So I remember with the ballet incident. So, I'm like 5 or 6 and she says, let's invite Jesus into the situation. And so I see Jesus come in and I see him take me out of class and we just go and play. And we go and we play at the beach because I live, near the beach. And we just go and play. And it was like this, from this, rigid class, right? Discipline to just going and having fun. Let's go and play.
No need to be perfect.
No need to be perfect. Let's just go have fun and play. And so it was a really powerful, I think another thing that came up in all of that was when we came out of the previous denomination that we were in before, there was a lot of things, we would, under the guise of discipleship,
right?
We would say things to each other that were not super kind.
Very hurtful, actually.
It was pretty hurtful. Yeah. But under the guise of being, discipling.
Right. Being strong.
It was pretty harsh. And I don't blame, I did the same thing because that's what I was taught. So I did the same thing to others. So I have a lot of grace for, but that was the environment is you would rebuke somebody else. You would disciple someone else. You'd say things. There was a lot of speaking the truth. But love was not real deep.
We forgot that part of the scripture, right? Speaking the truth in love.
And I think I shared this on another one, but when I read John 8 about the woman caught in adultery, how they would use the Bible, the law of Moses commands us to stone this woman. And I feel like that's what we use. We use the word to stone people, to condemn people.
And we were stoned.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of hurtful things that were said and spoken. And in one of the encounters I had, I saw the cross and I saw all the garbage that had been spoken to me, and not just in that environment, but, in different, from different employers that I've had, different, relationships that I've had. There's of the words that have been spoken. I saw it was like piles of garbage in a parking lot is what I saw. And then I saw the cross, and I saw all that stuff being sucked into the cross. Like this big black vortex was just
taking all that.
Sucked into the cross. Yeah, all of it was taken. And I just felt this weight lifted. And it was so amazing because even with that, even with healing, you think about inner healing, we had left our previous denomination, how many years ago? 18? 19, I think 19 now. And, of course, I went through a lot of forgiveness and healing from that time early on, the first couple years. But even just a couple years ago, I was at a ladies' retreat, and they had what's called a fire tunnel. Yeah. And I'm going to explain what that is. It was a little different fire tunnel than your usual fire tunnel. We call it more like a fire station. So they had 4 people who were praying for you, and you would walk in the middle of those 4 people, and they would pray for you, these 4 people. And then, so it was like a station. You'd stay there and get prayer. And then you'd go to the next 4 people, and they would pray for you. And you're just receiving. Right. And they're giving you prophetic words. They're praying. And there was 3 of these stations. So you're in the middle just getting prayed for, and it was super encouraging. So in the second set of 4 people, it was all people I knew, and they were saying the most amazing, beautiful things to me. I mean, it was just like incredible. And I remember being reminded of how it was when we'd be in a discipleship group.
Oh, just the opposite.
Or at a retreat, a leaders retreat, getting discipled.
And having all the negatives pointed out about you, where you're not perfect, where you're not living up to expectations, where you're not doing what they wanted you to do.
Right. And so being in that, and it was such the opposite spirit.
Yeah.
And I just remember weeping, and it was like another healing layer, coming off of me. Even, this is just 2 years ago?
Right.
I think it was like 2 years ago. And I thought, Lord, it's been already, at that point, it'd been 16 years since we'd been out of that environment. And yet still there was residue in my heart. It was another, peeling of the layer. Right. And I think it just shows you that, we can healing until we look just like Jesus.
Right.
Right. Like Pastor Dave says, until you're frequently mistaken for Jesus, there's areas where you're going to need healing, you're going to need deliverance, you're going to need, even this last Isaiah 61 conference we just had last week. Man, I'm going through deliverance during one of the sessions, as Cheryl's praying, and I could feel things leaving. Like this dirt world gets on you, right? Yep. Why did Jesus wash the disciples' feet? It was their walk up to that point, right? Right. Their walk up to that point, and he does that for us. He washes our feet. He washes off the dirt world, the dirt of this world that gets stuck to us in our just daily life. It happens, because we live in this world.
This fallen world, yeah.
And so I think inner healing is so important. Deliverance is so important. And it's something you can continue, until I'm mistaken
for Jesus. Until you're emanating the glory of God.
Until I'm frequently mistaken for Jesus. I'm going to keep, on this journey of healing and more freedom and more deliverance and all of that. So,
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I just encourage you. I remember coming home from that weekend, even the drive back. Yeah. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different. You were much more vulnerable, available. And I mean, we've always had a pretty good marriage, but it took another step forward. Right. Yeah. Into that oneness thing. So that was amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, that was a powerful weekend. As you mentioned, I grew up different. But I don't think people realize, I think what happens in life is until you deal with the garbage, it's still there. Right. Right? The wrappers are still there. The trash is still there. It's in your closet. Right. And, every now and then you open the closet and you see it, and if you don't clean it out, it's just going to remain there, right?
Right. Time doesn't take it away.
No, and I remember being a young guy, and I shared about Did I share about FU? I have. Oh,
you should share that story.
No,
yes, please share it. It's so good.
Oh, this is going to go on.
No, this is such a good story. Oh, my gosh. So powerful.
I got to think, am I emotionally available to share?
You are. I'm here for you. I love you. You can do this.
That made all the difference. No, I'm just kidding.
Difference. I'm going to intercede.
No, I can share this.
I'm interceding for you right now.
Okay, intercede for me. Are you going to fast?
I'm fasting.
You're fasting?
I'm doing a water fast.
For me right now?
Right now.
Good job. I noticed we put our big old water bottles up on the table. And you can see right there. Hold on. Let me get this front camera.
Taste and see.
Taste and see.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. It's our little company we're starting. The barbecue side.
Yes.
Anyway,
Barbecue side.
I'm going to stay talking to you so I don't have to look at the audience while I'm sharing this.
Yeah.
It'll probably give me more strength. But so I got molested as a little kid. I won't get into all the details. And, well, this is adults only. I never checked this videos for kids. So what happened is my brother's 9 years older than me.
Right.
And so when I was about 6 or 7, my mom was always working. And so he was running the house. And he'd have his friends come over. And I think he was probably, 16,
right,
17 at the time. And he had his friends over. And I remember this guy, I had to go to bed early, right? Like that was the rule in the house. When my brother said it was time to go to bed, when Alan said bedtime, you went to bed, or you were,
right,
you got beat up, you got tortured. Right. There was a lot of that in my family. But I remember he sent, go to bed, and we shared a room. We each had a bed on either side of the room. And it's kind of odd because he's 9 years older than me. So I was introduced to a lot of things that a little 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid
right,
probably shouldn't be introduced to.
Yeah.
Pornography, marijuana, heavy metal music, and black light posters and trippy stuff, Black Sabbath, whatever. So I was in bed, and I remember one of his friends would come into my room. Probably this happened once or twice a week for just a couple of weeks, and he would literally put his hands down my pants. I'm just a little guy laying on my back trying to fall asleep.
Right.
And he would just come in and he would start fondling me. And it was petrifying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because one, I didn't have at that age any kind of, understanding about things like that.
Right.
Two, here's a guy who was an athlete, my brother's friend, he had a cool car, and he's just coming in there grabbing my stuff. And I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't know what to do with that. I just sat there, and then he tried to talk to me, and I couldn't even talk. I just sat there frozen, like, what in the world? What is he doing? And this happened a couple of times. And I remember one day, I believe it was a Saturday, because there were more guys hanging out. They were in my bedroom. Everyone's smoking pot. The lights are off. The blinds are closed. It was daytime, but it was kind of dark in there. They had the black light posters lit up, and they're listening to this. I don't even know who was on the stereo.
Right.
And I walked in the room to get something, and his buddy, the one who had been fondling me, jumped off the bed and showed me a pornographic magazine with something going on in there. And then he pulls his pants down and he says, "Do that to me."
Oh.
Well, I had never seen grown men's,
Right.
And I was kind of taken back. And then he pulls my pants down.
Yep.
And of course, I'm a 6, 7-year-old kid. Like, that is very different. Right?
Yeah.
Than a guy who hit puberty. And I'm embarrassed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm scared. And I remember looking over at my brother on the bed as this was going on, and they're all laughing at me. And I quickly pulled up my little shorts and I ran out of the room. I ran in down the hall. Well, my bedroom door was right next to the hall closet. So I jumped in the hall closet to hide. And I'm sitting in there with the vacuum cleaner. I still remember the coats hanging down. I remember the Christmas wrapping in a container over here in the closet. And I sat in there and I was scared. I was crying. I was mad. I was confused.
Right.
And I remember having thoughts of, I will never let anybody put me in this position again.
Right. Yeah.
I will never allow myself to be that embarrassed or scared or feeling powerless. And at that time, I didn't know it, but I had a break, right? A little fracture part of me because of trauma. But I allowed a spirit called FU. And everybody knows what that means, right?
Yep.
Not Florida University.
Right.
FU. And so as a little kid, I remember that started to become my mantra. Not sometimes vocally with my friends or with others, but I just had this mindset of FU. And when I had that mindset, there was violence. And as a kid in elementary school, I fought all the time.
Right.
I was actually expelled in the 5th grade for fighting my teacher, which was stupid.
Right.
Right? And I remember why. If you embarrassed me or made me feel powerless or tried to intimidate me, I responded with as much violence as I could at that age, right? And I remember vividly being in the class and the teacher said, hey, let's draw out a fire escape plan for your home. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the stupidest thing you've ever told us to do. Because in my house, if you can't get out of the house when there's a fire, you're an idiot.
Right.
And nobody's going to run to the refrigerator to see my 5th grade plan for safety, right? Like I just, in my mind, I went, this is foolish. So I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at my desk. I'm not doing it. And my teacher walks over, Mr. Fisher, and he said, why aren't you drawing your escape plan? And I said, this is stupid. Nobody is going to pay attention to my escape plan.
Yeah.
And he grabbed me by my arm and he said, he squeezed my little bicep, you know, and he said, just do it. And I remember, F you.
Yep.
So what I do, I punched him right in his nose. He had glasses. They got. Now, Mr. Fisher was a Vietnam vet and a grown man.
And you're 5th grade.
He wasn't really big. He wasn't a big dude, but, you know.
But he was
So I punch him in the face, and I bolt out of the classroom, and now the kids are all riled up. And back then we had the lower parts of the windows were all kind of, you know, shaded like your bathroom windows, you know, can't see through them. But you go up top, you stand up on that counter and you can see. And I ran out and I was running and he chased me, tackled me in the little quad area on the grass and was, you know, putting me in an arm bar and had a choke on me. And, you know, I'm doing my best to fight him. I'm Tasmanian deviling, you know, and flailing and kicking. And I looked up at the window and the kids were all cheering. And, you know. And he took me to the office, and of course, I get expelled.
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, I'm gone for a week. They bring me back, and they put me into my sister Diana's class. Because she had skipped a couple of grades, because she's really smart. And they put me in her class. So I walk into her class for the first day, and I head to the back to a kid I know, and I sit down next to him. Meanwhile, the sweet teacher says, Andy, we have a seat for you right up here. Right next to my sister, in the front row. I'm not a front row guy at this point in my life, right? So I remember looking at I said, no, I'm okay back here. And she said something to me, and I looked over at the other kid. I said,
oh, no.
What a witch.
Yeah, but you used a different
word. But I used a different word. It describes a female dog.
Yes.
And he laughs. And she said, excuse me? She didn't hear it. And I said, I feel better sitting back here. And she goes, no, I would like you to sit up here. So I looked back at him. I was like, whatever. So I started walking forward. And I think I might have said it again. And now several kids laugh.
Oh, man.
And she says, Andy, why don't you share with the whole class what's so funny? And I said, I don't think you want to hear this. And she said, no, please share with us all.
Oh, geez. So you did.
If you rise up.
Yeah.
I said, why are you being such a witch? She just was shocked, ran over to the intercom phone, called the office, come get him, get out. And they literally kicked me out of the 5th grade. I did 5th grade from home. My sister would bring home the homework.
Yeah.
But, you know, all day I would watch, like, you know, Hogan's Heroes, the Andy Griffith Show. I'd watch TV, get bored, get on my bike, ride to the school at lunch.
Miss all your friends.
Go see them at the field, at the corner, at the gate, you know, and just, you know, talk to them. And then they got to go back to class. I ride my bike home, watch soap operas, because then there were soap opera hours, and just bored. And it turned me into a little thief. I started creeping through the neighborhood because people are at work, breaking into homes. I was a bad kid, man. But that thing would rise up in me, and I had zero control.
Yeah.
zero control. And it wasn't until the 8th grade when I got kicked in the groin by a girl that I quit being such a violent guy looking to fight everybody all the time, that I thought, wow, if this little girl can drop me to my knees and I can't catch my breath, man, I may want to stop this violent thing. Yeah, I did. It's some fear entered me at that point, and I started chilling out. So I discovered that that spirit entered me a few years back. This was probably 5-6 years ago. I'm doing a deliverance session where I actually reached out to a minister I knew, and he had an amazing ability to see in the spirit, help you get through stuff. So I reached out to him, and we had a Zoom call. And he's down in Arizona, and we're talking. And he goes, so what do you need, Drew? Like, what's going on? And I said, well, I get this rage, and I get to this point where I see red, and I got to hit something. Right. I got to raise my voice. I got to yell. I really want help with that. Yeah. You know, here I've been in the ministry all these years, you know, pastoring and counseling. And I go, but I hit a point where I just have zero control, and I want to figure that out. Yeah. So he says, yeah, let's pray into that. So I'm just sitting there, laptop open in our room, you know, I'm just sitting in my chair, chilling out, and he starts praying. And boom, all of a sudden I'm back in that closet as a little dude, and the Lord Jesus shows up. And he helps me out of the closet. He opens the closet door. He is weeping. And he just embraces me and says, I am so sorry this is happening to you. This wasn't my intention. I'm so sorry. And he's just holding me, and I'm crying. Yeah. And it was a beautiful moment. But in that moment, all of a sudden, in my mind, I'm just hearing every way you can say the F word. Yeah. I got the mother effer. I got the, you know, it's just raging in my head. And I'm not saying a word. Scott's praying. And all of a sudden he stops and goes, hey, Drew, what's going on? And I open my eyes. I look at him. I said, nothing. Because I don't want to repeat what's going on in my head. Right. Like, rah. So I said, nothing, bro. He goes, no, I can tell something's up. Yeah. Tell me what's going on. I said, I'd rather not, bro. He goes, you can't say anything to me I haven't heard before. Right. So he said, what's going on? And I just let loose. Yeah. Shut your mouth, you mother effer. Yeah. And I just let loose. and he just so calmly looks and he goes, oh, okay, I know that one. And he's just so chill. He wasn't taken back. He wasn't offended. I just cussed him out for 10 seconds, right? Every MFer and effing this. And he goes, all right, let's deal with that. And so we did. Yeah. And man, I'll tell you, I had the way I usually manifest, and I lose a lot of spirits in worship and stuff, and in the car, I'll pray, you know, if I get irritated or anxious or I'm stuck in traffic and I can sense irritation, I'm just like, Lord, I rebuke whatever spirit is causing me to be irritated, and da-da-da. And I'll yawn, or I'll sneeze, or I'll cough. This was a yawn too big for my face. Yeah. Like it felt like it came from down inside my leg. Right. And it was painful. Yeah. And it's like, you know how you can yawn and cut it short, right? You can start to yawn, you don't have enough air, right? This thing took probably 10 seconds. And I was just like, it was painful. And I could feel something inside of me coming up. And then the whole yawn came out. Then the tears came. And he's like, awesome. Like he saw it in the spirit that FU came out of me. Yep. And, you know, I'd forgiven or thought I forgave everyone. I even had interacted with my brother before he passed and said, hey, bro, like, remember this time he couldn't remember it. Well, he was high as a kite. They were hitting the bong, you know. But he didn't remember it. And I told him about it. And he was just kind of like, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you. And I felt like I needed to bring it up to him to find forgiveness. And because, you know, when you're a little person, I mean, I had nowhere on my grid for that stuff. Right. But I got rid of that FU spirit. And since then, I mean, I used to get a lot of road rage.
Yep.
And be telling people to pull over and
Right,
stuff.
remember
And
that.
you've been in the car when
I'd
that's
be
happened.
like, oh my gosh.
Like I
Like
literally
we're heading to church. You're preaching. And you want to pull somebody over and beat them up on the side of the road. Go talk about the love of Jesus.
Right. I'm getting ready to go preach on the love of the Lord, but you cut me off.
Right.
So I'm going to deal with that. But yeah, it was very freeing to get rid of that. And when we met with Susan Wright, it was very powerful. But I'll just share this briefly. My first time in the chair with her, we went back to that little 6-year-old me.
Yeah.
And what I saw vividly, I was there, was me standing in the living room of the house where all this had taken place. And I'm in the corner of my living room with my back up against the corner, and I'm holding a wooden sword. And I'm looking pissed off.
Right.
And I'm holding this wooden sword with everything I got, like, yeah. And all of a sudden, the Lord came into the room. And he's holding this beautiful, glowing gold sword.
Yeah.
And little me is like, oh,
Yeah.
like mesmerized, like I'm holding my little wooden sword, and instead of being all violent, I start to lower it, and I'm like enamored, mesmerized by this beautiful sword. And I'm seeing this scene like I'm watching a movie.
Right.
And little me starts walking, and the Lord's coming, and it's funny, in the spirit, you don't speak. No mouths are moving, but we're conversating. And he says to the little me, he said, this is the sword you want. The sword of the Lord, right?
Yes.
And so little me drops his wooden sword and comes over, and Jesus holds it out like, you can take it. And little me grabs the sword, but it's way too heavy.
Right.
So Jesus wraps his hands around mine, and we hold the sword.
Right. Oh.
He goes, this is what you fight with. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm bawling. I'm sure I was sitting in the chair just undone. And then a bunch of other little me's come in there. Like me at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like a whole bunch of me's come in there.
Yeah.
And they're all mesmerized by the sword that Jesus has.
Right.
So he lets go of it now that older ones of me, we're all grabbing the sword and holding it together. And he backs away. And then at some point, like a 10-year-old me is holding this sword, and it's real heavy, but he's holding it. And then the little ones of me all dogpile on Jesus, right? And we're wrestling around with him, and he's laughing, and we're laughing, and we're all just playing. Then I see like 15, 16-year-old me come down the hallway and stand at the corner with my arms crossed and pissed off.
Yeah.
And I remember, what the hell's going on in here, right? That's what I was saying. And Jesus leaves the kids, and they're all wrestling with each other, and walks over to me. And he says, you think you're tough? And I said, yeah, I know I'm tough. And he goes, you want to see what tough looks like? And I immediately see Calvary. I see Jesus getting beaten. I see the cross. I see him carrying. I'm just like, my arms go from here to, he said, that's what real strength looks like. And then me is just like standing there dumbfounded, like, oh my God, you are strong. You are a man's man. You are, because my thing growing up was Christians, they use God as a crutch because they can't handle real life. That was kind of my mindset. And he just undid all that. Yeah. And he embraced me. Wow. And I'm weeping. And then all of us get embraced by him. Right. We just gather around him, and he's like hugging us and loving on us, and we're all just, and it was so amazing.
It's beautiful.
It was so amazing. And yeah.
That's beautiful.
A lot of healing happened. And then me, as I was sitting there, showed up in the scene. Like, I'm not just watching it now, I'm in it, and I see myself in the scene. Yeah. And each part of me starts hugging me as a grown 57-year-old man. Yes. And they start disappearing. Like the littlest ones first start disappearing into me. Yeah. Like I'm holding them, we're all hugging, and then I notice that one's gone. And then we're all hugging, and it took probably, I don't know, a minute. But then I got to like the older parts of me. Yeah. 16, 17, and embracing them, and then they folded into me. Then I embraced the next one, and he folds into me. And it was such a powerful encounter with the Lord. And then it was just the Lord and I, and he just embraced me.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Powerful.
It was amazing. And it made a real significant difference in my life. Now, some people can look at this and see this and go, yeah, you were just imagining all these things. Amen. I am so glad that God gave us a sanctified imagination to go into the dimensions and go into the soul and heal these things and get, because now, you know, rarely do things really upset me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a significant change.
Right? Like, rarely am I impatient or any of the stuff that used to, and I haven't thought of dropping the FU.
Right. Yeah. It's gone.
It's totally gone. I think it was gone with Scott 5 years ago when we had that situation. But I think the true healing of all the wounds of that happened just last year.
Integration.
Right. The integration, those fragmented parts of my soul coming back into realignment to where now, man, I'm super chill about things. You know, like I don't get riled up. I don't get upset. I don't get frustrated. Well, I can at times, right? But it's usually little trivial stuff.
Right.
That I wanted to do this, or I had a plan and then this didn't happen. Then I get a little irritated. But it's not that overwhelming, rah, like, you know, release the beast, right? Like that hasn't happened at all. And so that was a very powerful fruit of that time with Susan and the weekend away. And so anything else you want to add? We can wrap up. That was
wrap it up. I think that's good.
Okay.
To end on.
All right. Let's do this again.
Next week? Same time next week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds
all right.
All right.